This week, Glitter Girl looked out and saw a spot of swoony bother. With Valentine's Day on the way, it only seemed appropriate that significant others should share in a scrapbook page spotlight. But surely there must be a way to write about a relationship without telling every detail of one's life story. Glitter Girl, can you help letter out thoughts on love?
Of course I can. Today I'm starting with 3 sheets of paper and 3 photos to make a single page layout. And I have one 4x6 photo plus 2 smaller photos. One's an Instax print and one is just printed down at 2x3 inches. So I have a little variety in the pictures. And then in the papers, these 2 are from the new collection Love Notes from Crate Paper out for Valentine's Day. I'm going to use this aqua print with the cream circles as my background. And then use this chalkboard inspired print called Crush for some framing and adding a little bit of grounding here and there with the dark contrast of the black and white print on the aqua. So just show you the reverse of those in case you're interested. And then one from a slightly older collection that's now in the sale, and you can find it either by the individual sheet or in a collection pack or at 6x6. So this is from the Find Your Wings and Fly collection from My Mind's Eye, and it has this great aqua kind of semi-random polka dot on one side, and then this side I'm going to use for some journaling paper, and I think I may include some of the corner details in this page as well. I've also cut some of the 2-piece digital files from this month, little hearts and different shapes. And I've cut that from a sheet of map paper by October Afternoon in their Travel Girl collection. But you could use any map paper for this particular theme, or as I put the page together, you'll see that you might want a different theme depending on how you take the journaling. So let's talk a little bit about the journaling while I get these papers trimmed to size. So, this week we're talking all about lists and currents and all sorts of things like that. And what I stumbled upon was this idea of how could we kind of take a nod or take some inspiration from Valentine's Day without having to do a Valentine's Day layout, because I don't know about you, but around here the idea of trying to go to a restaurant on Valentine's Day is kind of counterproductive, and there's so much stress that it wouldn't be all that enjoyable, and I'd have a lot more luck with a nice meal cooked at home, something that's a little bit less stressful and busy. And so I don't really then have something that's really glamorous to put on a Valentine's Day page every year. So I decided to just take my inspiration from the number 14. And I wanted to start my page with the idea of scrapbooking a significant other, so the boy would be in the pictures, and that I would want a list of 14 things. And from there, it could be whatever those 14 things seemed to fit on any given day. So it could be really swoony and do 14 things that I love about you, or 14 things I love about you and me, 14 things I loved about the last year. Anything like that could work. Or you can get a little bit more specific and not have to feel like the tone of all the writing needs to be really, really lovey-dovey. So there are other ways you could look at it. So one of the things that we love to do is to travel. So I figured I would do a layout with 14 destinations that I'm glad we have gone to together. So it's a little bit on the romantic side, but it's not overly cheesy and swoony. It's not... that's what I'm aiming for anyway. I think I'll stop there. Otherwise, you'll say, actually, yes, Glitter Girl, that's very, very swoony indeed. I've started by matting that larger photo with a larger frame of the darker paper. That's going to anchor this as the biggest photo on the page. It's going to draw your attention more toward that photo. And then I've cut some of the journaling paper, and I'm going to layer this just slightly underneath and not put the adhesive too close to the edge, because I think because of this layered design to the corner that it will look nice layered with some other papers or die cuts or anything like that tucked underneath that edge. So I'll come back to that once I have the more important things on the page. I was just playing with, should I move this further toward this edge to give me more space across here, or do I tuck this mat so that it just fits nicely in that little corner there? And I think that's my preference. I can always add more layering over here to this side to balance if I have too much space of the aqua. And then I'm going to be able to bring in these photos here. And again, I can follow that little box and use that to line up my Instax print. And mostly I've chosen this picture, the big picture, because it's old and that makes it funny now, and we both look very, very young in the picture and making silly faces, and so it's very lighthearted, which is what I wanted to go for with this whole page. So both of us together, and then two of just him. Okay. Now I have room for my journaling in this box. I also have more room for journaling over here, so I can mix that up. And then I have this other piece that I've cut on the silhouette to work into my title, and it's really fiddly and small. And this is the word destinations written in my handwriting and then cut out on the silhouette. And there are lots and lots of different ways you can do this, because essentially all you want to do is get your handwriting into a PNG file, which you can then import and trace in your Silhouette software. One way you can do that is to write it out with a black pen on white paper, use your camera and take a photo of it, and then you can turn that photo into a PNG with photo editing software. Or what I did in this case was to use my iPad. I used a sketching program and just wrote out the word on my iPad, which you can do either with a stylus or with your hands, and then saved that as a PNG and dragged that PNG into the Silhouette Studio software, traced it, and then was able to cut it out. So that way I could get something that looks more like my handwriting than trying to draw it straight onto my computer screen. And it means that I have this much finer lined piece, which is a bit more accurately how I would write my handwriting. And I don't know about you, but sometimes if I've had to sign an online signature where you're trying to do it with the mouse or anything like that, it comes out a little bit bigger and blockier than you would naturally write, because it doesn't have the pressure sensitivity of a pen. So this is a little bit closer to that, and it only took a couple minutes to get one drawn out on the iPad that I thought would work, and then went through the cutting process. Now, it is very small and fine, so I need to make sure that I have something that's going to contrast with it so that it's going to be legible. So I think it might be time to bring in a little bit of pink to this layout and have a pink box behind that. And then I'm also going to add in my 14 to work out my title. Aside from that handwritten piece, then there's a bunch of different stickers to finish the title. And I'll just take you through those. So for the numbers, I used these chipboard daily flash pieces from October Afternoon. Then this I, which is a little bit of a modified chalkboard style, is Today's Story by Alison Kreft from Echo Park. The Loved and the Seeing are both from this same sticker sheet, Vintage Bliss by Simple Stories, this little wood grain alphabet, and then one of the word blocks here. And the last one is from Daily Flash October Afternoon in Strawberry Ice Cream, and that's the set that comes with both the slightly larger and the smaller tile font. And now I just have the dots for the eyes, and I will tell you, in something this fiddly, my attention span does not allow for trying to cut the actual dot of the eyes that I have drawn into the word. So just find the right spot for the dots, and I'll put them in with enamel dots instead of a tiny little piece of paper. And then I want to move on to my journaling and my embellishment, which in this case I really want to work together. I don't want it to feel like one like there's a journaling box and then there's embellishment. I want it to work together so that the list, the items on the list have a little bit of embellishment as I go. So I've written on a separate sheet my list of the 14 places that I want to include, and each one is just going to have a tiny little comment, not a big long epitaph or anything, just something short. And then I want the embellishment to pick up on the different pieces of that. So I think the best thing for me to do at this point is to kind of move things around on the page in this open space so I can see exactly how much room 14 little tiny things on a list is going to take up. Depending on your style, you may want to take everything that is going to go in your list and make it into a nice, neat list in a row. I decided that I wanted the bottom of the page to be a bit more scattered. So what I did to allocate the space on the page is to take the number stickers and figure out what number was going to be from which sticker sheet, and then put pop dots on the back but didn't take the backings off so that I'd be able to move them around and figure out the space that they should go into. And now, before I start the writing, I can add little bits and pieces to dress them up. So for example, I can take this little heart piece that I've cut with the cut files, and I can put that behind, say, the number 6. And, I prefer not to have that gap in the middle of the heart outline, so like that spacing a little bit better. And then I know that that's where my 6 is going to go, so I'll go ahead and stick the number in place. That way I can do all sorts of little dress up things to the different pieces that are there, and I won't run out of the space for my journaling because I already have it blocked off, as long as I keep in mind that I'm still going to need to write either around or on top or next to the shapes that I'm laying down onto the page. So some of them are going to need nice, small, simple embellishments, like maybe this 4 will just have a tiny little heart over here because it doesn't have quite as much room. And that's fine. So some of them will get more embellishment than others. And if you wanted to make this more orderly, in addition to keeping it all in a straight line, you could also use all the same number stickers. Just make sure that you have enough ones to make it through 1 to 14, or you can just handwrite them or type them out so that the list doesn't have letter stickers or number stickers at all. And that will certainly tidy things up a little bit. But if you want to try this kind of a little bit messier approach, then I wish you lots of luck and enjoy this section of playing with all the different embellishments you can add and still have room for your journaling. Now that all of the numbers have something simple with them, it might be a cutout file, it might be a little bit of mist, a sticker, a stamp. I'm going to go ahead and add all my writing in, and then I might need to dress up some of the numbers a little bit more, but just having something for each of them and plenty of space to write gives me a good balance, and I can always come back and add more later. Here's my page with all the writing onto the page, and now I wanted to have a little heart-to-heart with you about handwriting, because I know that handwriting is something that we discuss from time to time as scrapbookers, where on one hand it's it's really lovely, and we know that there's a sentimentality and a nostalgia to having our own handwriting in our albums. But on the other hand, it can feel sometimes like a big artistic block if you look at your handwriting and you're not happy with how it looks on the page. And in general, I certainly don't think that my handwriting is amazing, but I'm happy with it, and that came from lots of practice. And my natural handwriting growing up, trust me, if you looked at my school books, was horrific. But by practicing and making it something that I wanted to improve, then I got to a point where I could be happy with it. However, right now, just coincidentally, I have a little pinched nerve in my arm that gives me a funny little tick in my hand that I promise will go away soon, but it does mean that when I'm writing, every once in a while my hand just makes a little jerky motion that I can't control, and if I'm writing, it turns into like an extra loop or a letter, so it might look like an extra E or an I or an L, because my hand will just kind of jut out in that direction. So that happened a few times when I was doing the writing on this page, and here is my kind of decision on what to do about that. I could decide that because this is a temporary thing and I don't want it to be part of my writing, that I could go back and type it, I could stamp out the lettering, I could do whatever it would be to avoid using my handwriting. Or I could just admit that right now my handwriting has this odd little extra that makes it look like sometimes I can't spell, and just leave it. And when I was trying to make this decision, I went ahead and wrote it all out in handwriting, which I do realize that if I wanted to go back on that was going to be a little difficult. But I thought maybe if I've only messed up a couple, then I could maybe print this out on a tag and layer it on top. That's the sort of way that I would fix it. But what I did was put all the writing down, mistakes and all, and then hold it at arm's length and say, do I really notice the mistakes? Now, the truth is, if you want to stare at the detail of this on the computer screen, you can spot the mistakes. I really don't think that's a great use of anyone's time, but it is possible. But I decided I would go ahead and leave it, and that if anybody in the future decides to look at the page in my album and think, what on earth was she doing? She had this phase of making pages where she couldn't spell and all the words have extra little loops in them. That maybe if it becomes such a big issue, then maybe I do a page that includes a note about that. But for whatever reason, I'm just going to leave it at the moment. I'm going to embrace that little imperfection. And I don't think that the scrapbooking police are going to come after me. So I know they won't come after you for your handwriting either. So I just thought I'd share that in case it gives you a little help to know that even those of us who write in our own handwriting on our pages all the time, we still have little hang-ups. I say we. I certainly mean I. But I think it is a little more universal than we might want to admit. Okay, moving on. So now I have all the words down, and I have this simple little embellishments with the numbers, and now I can just embellish to finish. I know I wanted to come back and add some more layers to that top of the page. So I think this is the right time to do that. And I'm just going to do that with some small strips of paper. And things like this where I can take the same pattern that's over on the other side of the page and tuck it underneath this edge over here to get just a little bit of it here as well. And I have more of these little cut pieces. I think that one would work really well there, but it would be nice to have a little bit of color behind them. So maybe this little tab, which looks like the labels that we used to write on to put on a cassette tape. And then I can add this over the top. I'm just looking at the spaces, so if it's possible, I can place it in a spot where I won't have an edge in one of the gaps of the letters. Maybe that gets a little heart as well. Can never go wrong with hearts. Okay, maybe not everybody agrees with that, but it works for me. If you have a motif that you like, embrace it. It's fine. I think this one, yeah, I'm going to save this one for another project. This was actually just the reverse, and I hand cut the box around it. So all those little individual hearts were here. And I think on a piece of paper where you'd have something behind it that would be all the same paper, it'll look really nice. But I think over the different layers, it's going to be a little bit too busy. I do have one of these little flare badges from 2Piece that I thought would be a nice addition up here, but it needs something behind it as well. So maybe start with a little banner sticker and just stick a pop dot behind there so that it keeps the dimension of the banner. But I need some other color going on there too. This red heart I think is too much of a contrast because all the pinks there are pretty soft. So go with something a little more subtle, the softer pink. Maybe this arrow along the edge. And then that badge there in the middle. Yeah, that looks like it'll work well. And the other thing I wanted to do was to bring up some of that type of embellishment that's down there at the bottom and make sure that it has a spot at the top so it doesn't feel like the page is too disconnected from the top to the bottom of the layout. So I'm just looking, maybe I could use some of these little word strips up here in these top layers. And I can go with the same sticker sheets that I've already used. And just see which colors will fit. That seems to be coming together a little bit better now. And if I look down to the bottom of the page, then I'd quite like to see something that has a little bit more texture, a little bit more sparkle maybe. So I'll get some gems and enamel dots and maybe tiny little wood veneer hearts. And see if that will dress things up a bit. This set of gems is actually a Christmas pack, but I liked this blue glittery one. Thought this was a good mix. So maybe I take 3 of those and spread them throughout the page. They're kind of like glitter rhinestones. I think that's how I would best describe them. So they're from Prima. And that color scheme is the Holiday Jubilee set. So I have 3 of those. And then maybe 3 little Studio Calico hearts. And at this point, I'm just looking for where there's a bit more space that looks like it could benefit from a little something extra, like that gap there. And then placing them so that they work as a triangle somewhere or a line. Not too worried. But maybe replacing the stamped tiny heart there with the dimensional wood grain one. I feel like this space here needs a little something, and maybe something that could run in a straight line there. So let's see, I have an arrow sticker left here, but I'm not convinced on the color for that one, so keep looking. Is this too big? Actually, no, that'll work. So a label sticker can fill a gap like that. This one is more a more open shape, so maybe something that's a shaped sticker rather than just a rectangle or a circle. And then just one little finishing touch here, and instead of using brads with the center of these little number tag chipboard pieces, this time I've just threaded some baker's twine through and tied 2 little bows. Figured that was a little bit more Valentine inspired, even though I'm just using the Valentine theme as inspiration rather than a literal translation. So I think that is where I'm going to leave this one. There's plenty of stuff on the page, and it may be well too much to your eye, but it was very, very fun to make. And actually, even though there is a lot on the page, the numbered list makes it a little easier to follow, and I don't think it will be too out of place in the other pages in my album. So I encourage you this week to give this idea of Valentine's Day inspiration a try, even if you're not going to scrapbook some literal Valentine's Day photographs. If you made a list of 14 things, or if you decided to scrapbook your significant other, what would be on your list? Would you do 14 of your favorite meals to eat together, 14 of your favorite activities or places to go, 14 different movies you've seen together? Anything like that can work, and see if you can come up with a list of 14 and put somebody else in the picture with you this week. I hope you enjoy and have much fun scrapbooking this week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.
Join us next week for the continuing adventures of Glitter Girl and the ongoing mystery of the scrapbooker behind the mask at twopsinAbucket.com.